What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast. This is a post-Keeper's Diary episode, so we do talk about, spoilers. We talk about, more of the process behind working on this project together as a team. And I have Nougie, who was our cinematographer on this project, who did an amazing job on this project, and he is on this episode, as well as Andy from Biohazard Declassified, who was the producer of this project, who also did an amazing job as a producer. This is going to be a very fun show, but I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts, seriously, and I could say this collectively for everybody else. The response has been mind-blowing. While we were filming this, we were probably a little bit less or a little bit over the 24-hour mark, and just within 48 hours it reached 100,000 views, and currently, as of this recording, it's at 127,000 views and climbing. So 12,000 likes, 2,000 comments, and 12,000 of those likes are 99% positive, I might add. So we definitely made some history here with Keeper's Diary, and it wouldn't have been possible without you, the community, everyone who donated. It doesn't matter if it was from $5 to however, much money you put into this thing. It all helped us. So thank you. We wouldn't be here without any of you. And the responses has been completely mind-blowing because we know how dedicated and how hardcore us Resident Evil fans are when we are presented with something that is live action RE. So we knew that this was going to be under a scope of, fans that really want to make sure that we got it right. And obviously, we do address some criticism in this episode, things that we could have done differently, things that we recognize that fans have pointed out. But for the most part, it's literally been like 98% positive. The like ratio is literally 99% positive. But as far as like the little nitpicks that I've seen in video reviews and coverage, it really has been mostly positive. Now, again, we're always open to constructive criticism, so we talk about that on this show as well. But this is a podcast that goes a little bit more into some of the details of our filming process because we shot it back in Michigan for a week straight, pulling 20-hour days. Myself, Nougie, Andy, and Andrew were in those rooms recording, Charlie as well, just pulling in those long hours, and it was worth it. When you see all the blood, sweat, and tears go into a project and you see the response, it makes it all worth it. Seeing all the positive replies and everything really just warms our hearts. So just thank you so much. And hopefully this knocks down the door for more projects in the future that we can work on as a team. Hopefully this is only the beginning of a movement of showing people what you can do with a little bit of money and a production team that has a vision. So I just want to let everyone know, again, I can't thank you enough, and hope you enjoy this podcast with Nougie and Andy. Let's roll it.
This is Albert Wesker of S.T.A.R.S Alpha Team, and you're listening to the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast.
What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast. And I have two very special guests here, my UK brothers, Andy and Nougie. Thank you for joining me today on this episode, guys.
Looking forward to it, man.
I've been buzzing all day. Keeper's Diary's out. We've been sat on the secret for, half a year? And now it's 24 hours removed since it going out. Been itching to talk about what's been going on with you guys. So this should be a good one.
Yeah.
Itchy take me.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a great one because now it's out. It's been out for just over 24 hours. Like Nougie said, it's amazing to see the reactions to just, the trailer and the photos, seeing those reactions, that was good to get that positive response. But now that like the finished product is out there and people are really saying a lot of great positive things about it, and I think, I don't know, it definitely is like a very heartwarming kind of feeling to just know that we created something and people are really, really buzzing about it online. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, how are the fans going to respond? How are they going to, take all of these little details that we put in there for them? And it's like we really did you know, obviously, yes, there's always stuff that you could do differently in the next project, but it's like we really did put our all into this, and to finally see it done is just it's crazy. It's crazy that we're finally here. It literally just seems like last week. It was back in October, we were in Michigan, you know, shooting for 20 hours, you know, and now we're here. So it's definitely a great feeling of accomplishment, I think, just as a team collectively. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Like the edit was kind of strange. It's taken a long time to do it, and you know, films always take a long time to work. But the way we got to 100% felt really strange. As in, it was sort of like 10%, 20%, 30%, and we were on like 99%. What felt like for 4 months.
Forever.
And then the next thing we knew, we were on 100%, and then the film's out like the next week, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
holy shit, like this is now done. So yeah, like the actual release really kind of snuck up super quick. But yeah, it was definitely worth every minute of it.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like, you know, it was obviously originally going to be first quarter of this year. And then, you know, it took a little bit, but I think, you know, that the extra time, very similar to what Andrew said when I had everyone on a few days ago, was just like, yeah, like sometimes, you know, this is out there forever. So you want this to be, you know, as good as you know, want it to be. And like, you know, sometimes you could keep editing literally until the last minutes of upload. And I'm pretty sure Andrew was just making sure that edit was everything that he wanted as well. So it's, you know, sometimes you just have to walk away, you know, you can tweak it forever. And, you know, sometimes you just got to be like, all right, it's done, like done. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, because if we really wind the clocks back to October, you know, there was a lot of instances where, you know, we were just like, man, like, you know, how are we going to get over some of these, you know, challenges and different things that were being thrown our way from a creative standpoint. So I think a lot of the responses, again, like when you go through those long days and you see, you know, how tiring a process like that can be, it makes it feel all worth it when you see like the positive reception. You're just like, wow, like, so all that like little sleep we got, and, you know, feeling tired as hell on the very last night of shooting, you know, it's all worth it. You know, it makes it just a project that, you know, I think we'll never forget, as far as like this being the first one that we all did together. So I think, yeah, I'm just very, very content with the responses. I think that's the best way to describe like my feelings of everything. How about you, Andy? How are you feeling of the responses of everything?
Yeah, I mean, the big issue with the way, just on the back of Luke's point, in the manner that we was kind of stuck on that 90% for such a long time, and a lot of you start getting into like loggerheads with each other, because you're like, man, like some of the stuff that you're seeing are actually cursory stuff that, to be honest, no one really cares about, and no one's probably even going to notice. So it's like, man, in my opinion, we're sitting on a film for months and months that could be out. But I totally get my role on this production was not to deliver my own vision, and that's what was that was extreme. It's been extremely clear the whole way through. But it is very easy to kind of dip into, like, it is a collaborative process, but you know, it is Andrew Sorlow's A Keeper's Diary. So it's his intended vision, and it was up to me to assemble the team to help him deliver that. But I would have really appreciated if we had just launched it months and months ago, because it was getting on, and I was like, man, like, we need to get this film out, because like people are asking questions of when it's coming out. We can hype it as much as we can, but we need that definitive end date. You have to commit to something, and right. I'm really, really glad. There are things that I would like to have done better. Maybe the actual launch itself, like a big premiere, and you know, we have a big round table with everyone and stuff like that. That obviously, that element was more of the Residents of Evil to manage, but I would have liked to have at least oversawn that process. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to film out. At this point, it was like, you know, it's got to come out. We're sitting on it to the point. The reason why we're all so shocked about these responses we're getting is because we're so numb to the film. We've seen it so many times through all the drafts. And I was talking about this on my stream yesterday, and in the time leading up. And I was like, man, like, are people actually going to like this? I would like to go back to the first time I ever watched it You know, it's like when you play a game for the first time or you watch a movie for the first time. You're always chasing that high. Like when you played Resident Evil 2, the original, for the first ever time, you're never going to get that again. So it's extremely tough to evaluate how good or how bad a piece of media is. I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on that.
Oh man, it's such a hard balancing act. Like I totally get where you're coming from, and especially when you've got a project that has been funded by so many RE fans. You know, it's not just like us have funded the film and we can release it when we want. We've got a lot of people that have expectations that want to see it. So it's like a real balancing act of that, and then also the balancing act of, you know, what if this is our only shot that we get to do this? This is our only chance and we have missed things or we've overlooked things. And as soon as a movie is released, you can't go back and edit it. You can't change anything. As soon as it's out there permanently.
It's everyone else's forever. Yeah.
Yeah. And people will forever criticize whatever, whatever errors or mistakes have been made there. And I felt that Andrew was really feeling that pressure. He really, really wanted to make sure that this was something that was going to leave the RE fans happy. And RE fans, I mean, we're all RE fans ourselves, obviously, but I think I can very objectively say RE fans are some of the hardest fans out there to try and please, because they care so much. They're very passionate. They care about all of the tiny little details, all the minute details. They all matter, and those are the things that have been missed in the other RE films that have come out. All of the other live action films have just been inconsistencies or parts of the lore which haven't been told right, and that is what has pissed everyone off. And so we've wanted to make sure this time round that that doesn't happen again, and that everyone is going to enjoy all of the little details that we put into it.
Yeah, very, very well put. And I think that's the one thing about, you know, again, the fans being, you know, so passionate, and like you said, I mean, the amount of, you know, responses has been incredible, but also, yeah, like when you have that many people that are making this project happen, and yeah, there was a lot of that mindset while we were even filming of just like, we got to give this our all, because what if this is the one time we get to do this and that's it? Like, who know, you know what I mean? We're obviously just thinking like, let's just try to, you know, do what we would want to see as Resident Evil fans on set, as far as like, you know, making those little adjustments. And obviously, yes, there's time restraints, there's budget restraints too, but it's just making the best of what you have. And that's why I think that's, if some people were thinking, oh, you know, why didn't they do this side or explain this or maybe show a little bit more? It's all comes down to, you know, I think we stuck to, especially Andrew stuck to the previs specifically that had all those shots, and that's what we did. I mean, we had so many shots, man, that like we had to set up for. And I think by the time we were really moving with those, you know, like first couple days, it really was like a well-oiled machine, kind of like what Andrew said on the show. Like it started to move a lot more smoother as we were kind of getting, I mean, there was still stuff being built on the other side of the warehouse. Don't get us wrong. Like we were still building literally up until the last second, but it just shows that like, that detail, even like, oh, we need to make, you know, this look a little bit more grimy or dirtier, like the lab, right? Like little things like that. It's like all that attention to detail is what fans are looking for. They're looking for those details when they're watching it. So it comes to show, like, you know, when you have fans at the wheel, we're going to try to give everyone what they want. And, you know, we're going to switch things up a little bit, but we're still staying true to it. And I think that's, you know, that really shows in the final product. And I can imagine, you know, obviously, like kind of like what Andy was saying too, like the chats back and forth of like, you know, Andrew had to, you know, kind of message everybody to be like, hey, how does this look? And it was a lot of like back and forth of opinions and stuff. So I can only imagine trying to kind of, you know, accommodate everything as well on top of the fan pressure. That definitely was a massive challenge. But I think it was still good that we were able to kind of give our input on said decisions. It didn't feel like it was just kind of like, you know, like there was some stuff that was going to be decided anyway, but there was also like, all right, how does this look? How do you got, you know, it was definitely a good communication after the fact. It wasn't just like, all right, you guys like helped me on set and then that's it. It was more just like, all right, let me show you these cuts. What do you guys think? What are notes? Like things like that. So I liked that it was more of a, you know, a slowed down process in some regards, because you really can, you know, but you can also get in your own head too. sometimes to be like, oh man, like, you know, the pressure, or, you know, those things could just naturally happen because, like you said, Resident Evil fans are very passionate and they really just want to see something that is more than what these other film studios at, you know, again, we had, I think, Andy, you said we had literally what, like 0.1% or 0.01% of like the budget that the first RE film had, right? So it's like, you know, like we did that just with that amount of money.
Literally, all I was going to say was I fact-checked this yesterday, and it was like the first RE film had a budget of $313 million, and we had $50,000. So it's just like, look at the comparison of that. Yes, I know we did a short compared to a feature, but you can't even compare that. It's just, crazy. And yet, the response that we've got in a day is more positive response than any RE film I think has ever had in history. So, don't quote me on that, but...
Right, no, but I think we did make history, you know what I mean, as well, as far as just being able to do what we just did. So it's like being able to kind of now reflect on it it's still, again, like I was saying in the chat, it's like, it's still kind of like a pinch me moment where it's like, wow, we really just did that. Like, you know, it's one thing when we came back and we filmed it and we're like, wow, we just did that. But now it's like, it's done. And you're just like, holy crap. Like, you know, everything's all, you know, like just exactly how we would want it. Obviously there's stuff that, you know, like while we're filming, we could have been like, all right, yeah, we could have did this, but we're always going to think like that because we were in it. It's one thing when you're in it versus like on the outside and then you're critiquing it from just like a fan. But like when you're in it, like, yes, there's always like things you're like, oh, we could have did this or that. But like, you know, we did what we did with the crew that we had, which again, we really had a fantastic smaller crew that was like, again, doing everything that we could do just to get by. You know, so we can get to the next scene, or like, you know, again, like I was saying in the last podcast, like as soon as I showed up that night after driving all day, they were just like, you know, I think Andy was like, yeah, Andrew's going to need you at the warehouse, you know, to help. And I'm like, I'm in. Like, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, Callie, I'm going to go. Like, she stayed back at the hotel or the motel. And I was just like, let me just go and just, you know, let's just start. And then I was helping Rob Noor with some stuff. And then next thing you know, more people showed up and we just kept rocking with that because, again, it was literally being built up until like literally while we were filming. So those are just things that you have to do with a small independent, you know, film where you just don't have all hands to do just the building and that's it. It's literally like Andrew was doing the building and Rob Noor was doing, and then Andrew's dad and like everyone else. And like we were hanging wallpaper and we had the, you know, it was just like, we just all had to come together. So I think that magic was definitely very special because it can only really happen when you bring certain team together that is all just trying to get to that one goal. And that's just getting it in the can and then eventually past the finish line, which is now, you know, what we're here. Andy, you were going to say something a little bit earlier. I don't know what you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, it obviously goes without saying, this entire project it's never been attempted before at this scale, with the people in the community and of course the budget. And that was really early on after Andrew had parted ways with Andy Sperling and Kreishmere. He didn't really have an idea of what budget to put against it because something like this had never been attempted before. We didn't know we could raise 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. It was all up in the air. So that has a direct implication of the sort of product that we can produce.
Yeah,
because, you know, I remember the initial estimate was like, oh, I think this is probably going to be around 100,000. I was like, man, I just can't see that happening. And actually looking back, I think, man, why the fuck did we not put 100,000 in? That would make my life so much easier. But, there is elements as well in those early stages. You're coming up what you think is you're trying to guess what's never been like attempted before. So like. You're like, okay, right, $40,000. That seems from our numbers, that seems like a very fair and reasonable sum to put against. And it's like, well, is that going to draw attention? Because what we don't want to do is, I mean, we could quite comfortably say, we're going to make you a short film, guys, and we want $250,000. That's going to draw a lot of attention and a lot of unnecessary attention. And on top of that, we are, and I appreciate a lot of us in the circle have industry experience, or obviously Luke has industry experience. Ro is a massive content creator, but untested, on Indiegogo, untested in a crowdfunding capacity. I think it would be extremely unwise to start off with such a monolithic budget, like of say like 250,000. You got to think of tax implications. You got to think of just the visual of it. Like, oh, hang on a minute, these guys want $250,000 to make a Resident Evil short. I just can't see it. I just can't see that being fathomable. And I think 40 to 50 grand was that sweet spot. And knowing what I know now, if I had the opportunity to crowdfund another project, I would definitely aim for that sort of $50 to $75,000 goal. I think anything more than that, you're going to need assistance. It's especially navigating the US's like ridiculous tax system.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
get you over here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a monolithic undertaking. You're doing something for the very first time.
Yeah.
And but I do, as I said before, I'm really happy. I'm content with the final product, and I hope the people that have watched the film, and it seems like they have, the like to dislike ratios extremely well. We're getting comments, people commenting saying, "I've got tears in my eyes watching this," and that is like such an humbling experience, because everyone's got their own egos about what they believe Resident Evil is, and oh yeah, if I made Resident Evil, I'd do this, this, and this, you know. If I made a Resident Evil film or a series, I'll do this. I'll do it so much better. And it's not until you really put your bollocks on the block to actually do it, you go, wow, this is not just like a vanity project for ourselves, but like we're getting genuine human emotion like pouring into our projects. You're getting people commenting like, oh, I used to play Resident Evil with my dad. I'm sure you guys have had it in your chat on streams.
Yeah.
I used to play this with my dad, and he's no longer with us. And this series means a lot to me. And yeah, man, that's been a real humbling experience. Like just seeing that raw human emotion in the comment section. It's been overwhelming.
Absolutely.
I think that's just what RE is best known for, right? 90s nostalgia is, I think, how we've all fallen in love with it. I'm such a 90s kid at heart. I love everything about the 90s. It's such a great, warm time of my memories. And Resident Evil is right at the top there, sort of like 1996 right through until 2000. All of those years I was playing Resident Evil games. And so, yeah, it's a very rose-tinted area of nostalgia. And I think that a lot of people that will be watching this film have that same nostalgia, because going back into the Spencer Mansion takes you back to a certain place in your life. And with a lot of people, they've got a lot of fond memories that it brings them back to. I have that, it always makes me think of my friends or where I was in life at that point as well. So, it definitely is a series, and in particular RE1, a game that people feel very fondly about.
And just to go on top of that point, because that is such an interesting, that is a perfect point. When we're talking about adaptations, and I really tried to get this across to Andrew, and I'd say maybe 70-30 it got through. Adaptations aren't just about making things look like how they are. You've got to make people feel. The only way you're going to get people to buy into the Keeper's Diary of Biohazard Story is to tap into the feeling. You want people to feel like they're in the Spencer Mansion once again. It's not just this area looks like the Spencer Mansion. No, it feels like the Spencer Mansion. Spencer Mansion's not just a location, it's a character in Resident Evil. And it's really important you get that right. And that has been the issue with the Resident Evil mediums up to date, is they just can't make people feel Resident Evil. And really that's why I think the Keeper's Diary is resonating. It's not a perfect product. I'm sure that inevitably we'll go into stuff later. Maybe we would have done better, but it's making people feel Resident Evil again.
Yeah, that's a great point. What are you going to say, Nougie?
I think, honestly, I don't want this to just turn into a patting ourselves on the back, we've done perfect kind of thing. So we haven't, as Andy said, many, many lessons learnt about this.
Right.
Lots and lots of things we'd do differently. But I do think one reason why this has come across so well and has done a lot better than other films is in many ways we've kind of assembled the Avengers of the RE space together on this film. We've got so many different channels that are involved, and not just us three, like other people, some of the associate and executive producers who came and joined us on the film sets, and especially Beggy. I know that she's part of Row, but I feel like Beggy is like the Resident Evil encyclopedia. She just knows everything and out, the Oracle, as you say. And I think that just all of our combined experience on set, like everything is being analysed by someone. And so between us all, I feel like we've got a very good sense of what is the Spencer Mansion and what is the Resident Evil universe. We're not just a random Hollywood studio that's coming in and saying, oh, lighting looks great. Oh, this, these things are working out the way we want them to. We're just making sure that our Resident Evil checklist is working properly. So yeah.
A perfect example. And I'm not gonna. I don't think it's fair that we just go, oh, look how great our adaptation is, and look how terrible the other ones are. But I think it's a valid point to bring up. Look at how Johannes Roberts did the RPD in the Welcome to Raccoon City film. Like, it didn't have any character to it. It didn't have that feeling of the RPD. Do you remember that time you first walk into the RPD and it's got that pan, the camera pans up, you got this massive hall, ex-museum, the music comes in, do, do, do,
yeah.
Just sends chills up your back. Because that's making you feel the location, not just seeing it.
It pulls you in. Yeah, it really does pull you in.
And that's why I think Welcome to Raccoon City, even though it did kind of hit the marks with certain things, locations and visually Resident Evil, it didn't feel Resident Evil. And that is why there is such a disconnect with the films.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's always because there's always like, oh, but what if we did this? Like, there's someone off of the side, of the set just saying like, oh, what if we made, Itchy Tasty just kind of like a throwaway? It's written on blood on like a window, like stuff like that. You're like, why was that? Why was that there? And why was Raccoon City abandoned? It's not supposed to be an abandoned town that's dilapidated. It's supposed to be a town that was filled with people that got infected. And
Leon's not a receptionist. Like,
right.
Why is that
let's not go into Leon and Welcome to Raccoon City. Fucking hell, man. Oh, I can actually feel my blood boiling. But this is all of this stuff, which is how this project happened, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like Andrew Solo, just like us guys, big time Resident Evil fan. And I think it was actually, he watched Welcome to Raccoon City and was just like, we can do better than this. Can't stand this anymore. And so he took it upon his personal self, try and do something better than that. That was his only goal, to do something better than what has been made there. And clearly he has done that with his vision. So, Welcome to Raccoon City. Like, that is a separate podcast in itself.
Yeah, exactly, right? Seriously.
It is a great pitch. Like, The Keeper's Diary is such a great pitch on paper, because and the way the story is, where it kind of blends in and out of Resident Evil 1. You start with Jill opening a door, you read the diary, then you end with Jill closing a door. Like, it's a perfect way of like interweaving with existing lore. And yes, obviously we've changed a few things, but interweaving with existing lore and then seamlessly going back and continuing on with Resident Evil 1 like any other playthrough. There's things that, again, we'll talk about critiques later. There's things that if we could go back and had more time, I would certainly have loved to have changed up. And I think they have been quite validly brought up in some of the valid criticisms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when it comes to, the differences between, again, coming at it from a fan's perspective versus, obviously the studios, the preparation. So let's wind the clocks back a little bit to right after we hit the crowdfunding. How was kind of like, at least as far as Andy and Nougie, I'd like to hear from both of you, like the preparation process as far as like going into the October shoot? I mean, obviously you didn't know certain things until, obviously you picked up certain equipment or you wanted to but like, how was that for both of you as far as like going into it? Do you guys also feel a sense of like pressure, or just like, holy crap, like we're doing this like soon, like in a month's time or whatever, you know, like did that ever hit you of like, okay, now we have to like be on our A game, you know?
I mean, I would suggest from my role and my perspective, it was really trusting Andrew to get everything done before we turned up. And I just think if we had the opportunity to go back, we'd have definitely have hired a carpenter or something like that just to take the strain off it, because I feel like maybe he got there and he was like, fuck, I actually have a lot to set up before the guys get here. And obviously everybody at the end kind of got stuck in and made it happen, much to our you know, being jet lagged and everything like that. Last thing you want to do is start building sets, but we made it happen. I definitely think, yeah, getting especially the sets, getting everything set up, I just think was such a mammoth undertaking, and so much time was maybe spent focusing on the shot lists and the previews and stuff like that. It was like, oh, actually, we need manpower to get this over the line. I mean, I think everybody here helped out with building sets.
Oh yeah.
And you know, the idea ultimately, and again, this goes back to also the JJ and the Residents of Evil. Like, this is the first time they're doing it too. You know, this is the first time they're doing a film at this scale, and I think maybe they saw it and was like, man, this is a huge undertaking. I don't think they necessarily realized the gravity of the film until that first day of shooting, and I was like, holy shit, we're doing something really special here. But to get to that point, like, we have to say it as it is, it was an extremely painful process.
Yeah, it was definitely like we got there and it was just like you're going, you know, like we were constantly, yeah, it was literally like all hands on deck. I remember, like I said, the first night I got there, and then I think even that night I left the warehouse by like, it was still like 1 or 2 a.m. You know what I mean? We were painting the stuff, making sure it was going to dry. I had to put the heat thing up to the paint so it was drying in the keeper's room. And you guys obviously jet lagged as absolute hell. You know, so you're coming in and it's already just like, oh, dude, like, you know, we got to get all this stuff set up. And obviously, yes, it was like, again, because we were doing a lot of this stuff in whether it was ADR or just like looping in the audio. Like, as we were filming in the keeper's room, which felt like forever, and you guys know, because you were literally within that room for literally all that time. It was like 3 days of like just maybe 4, just being in that keeper's room. And again, there was like saws going off on the other side of the wall, and people were, you know, still painting, still getting stuff done. So it really was just like getting everyone that you can just to help while we're just in here filming this one little section so everything else can get done.
Very quickly, before I get onto that,
sure.
Go back to your last point about just actually arriving.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So just in case some of your fans don't know about mine and Andy's journey before we even started rolling the cameras.
Please
right?
explain, please.
So,
this would be great.
Yeah, so we had to fly in to Chicago from the UK, had a super early morning flight. So early and faffing around bringing a load of camera stuff over as well. We almost missed our fucking flight because of various things that just took so much time and security and stuff like that.
Wait,
made our flight.
We went to a restaurant. Sorry, this is such a crucial point. We went to a restaurant and Luke was like, oh yeah, we got plenty of time. We're waiting to have our bill paid. And the woman's like, I'm just going to be with you. And literally, it's like last departure. Like, the plane's going. I'm holding my phone out like I'm like, Luke, if she doesn't like come over here in the next like minute, we're going to have to fucking just leave and just not pay.
Yeah. Wow.
I've never taken so long to fucking pay for a meal.
Especially in America where like they come back with their bill. UK, you got to like flag them down. They're hiding behind the counter. I'm like, yo, I'm done. But over there, you think they would have some urgency, you know? It's like, come on.
Yeah, in an airport, bruv.
Right.
A fucking airport.
Yeah,
like,
it's like
surely you get the premise that people can't hang around here for
exactly.
very long.
Like, they don't have time.
So yeah, all of that drama, flew over, you know, it was like, I don't know, 8-9 hour flight, however long it was. Just get out of the airport, and then we just had so much admin to do. As in, we had to go and pick up like the grip truck, which we had all the camera stuff in it. We had to pick up all of the camera equipment from 2 different places. We had to go and I had to pop over to Andy's friend's house because we didn't have some spare stuff for the van, spare tires and things. And so basically, like after that flight and everything in the morning, we spent a good 6-7 hours just driving around Chicago, doing thing after thing, errand after errand, picking up all these things. And then after that, we're like, cool, we've done all the errands. Now we'll start driving over to Iron Mountain. Oh, how long is this drive from Iron Mountain to Chicago going to take us? We're like, SatNav says about 350 miles, so about 7.5 hours. So we did all of this non-stop, like no sleep, like from when I woke up at like 6 a.m. on Friday morning. We did all of this stuff, and then we arrived at Iron Mountain at like, what, 10 p.m. US time?
Yeah.
So this is almost like 24 hours had passed at this point.
Yeah, you guys drove right to the motel, I believe, because I remember you guys came in, I said, what's up? And I think it was... Yeah, because you guys showed up with the grip truck. I remember you had the whole thing with the lenses and everything, and I was like, all right, like, but it was late. Like, I thought you guys were gonna get there a lot sooner, but obviously I didn't take into account of how far one point was to the other and what you guys were dealing with to get everything set. So I was like, damn, like I hope they're okay. Like I was thinking, like I'm on the I'm on the set, like I'm like, man, like Nougie and Andy should be here any second, right? Like, I feel like they should be. And, like, you guys just had a whole day of travel, which is mentally exhausting in and of itself. If anybody's ever had to travel and also, do a bunch of shit or shoot a film, let alone, just to be there. But, yeah.
I think it was European naivety, to be honest, because you forget how big the US is. And
the Midwest especially.
Yeah, like, unfortunately for JJ, like, really cool part of the world, and as a foreigner there, it's a really special experience you get because they don't have a lot of foreigners there. So it's everyone's so nice and welcoming, but it's so remote. It's like fucking driving to Pueblo or something, Like Jesus Christ,
man! Like I've been to like the Atacama Desert in Chile. I've been to like some ice glaciers in Iceland. But like, I don't think I've ever been to anywhere that has felt as remote as Iron Mountain. It's just like when we're leaving the kit house and making sure we've got all of the kit, because it's like if we left like a fucking screw or a battery or anything back there, it's an 8-hour drive each way. It's like almost 24 hours of driving to go pick up anything. It's so remote. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that was the most driving I've ever done in a week. And that was it was kind of nuts because I left at like 2 a.m. I think the night before, and then so by the time I got through Pennsylvania in about Pennsylvania is probably like 7 or 8 hours just driving through, and then I got through that, and then it was basically just like, all right, like, and then we had to drive even further into Michigan for the last night. And we'll talk about that in a little bit because that was the skeleton crew night, and that was very eventful because we had to drive 6.5 more hours in one day. We slept a little bit that day, but not much. Got up and we're like, oh, we gotta drive, 6, almost 7 hours, probably with a stop for gas, obviously. And I remember Nougie, you're just like, dude, how are you managing all this driving? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just driving straight, man. I don't know. Like, I was tired, but I was so like wired. I was like, we just have to get this done. And like, I was obviously running on fumes by the time, we were heading to that last night of shooting at the kennel. But man, like that was, definitely collectively there and back. That was the most driving I think I've ever done. And also have worked on something to this scale where it's like just taking up most of the day. But yeah, that's amazing that you guys got here in one piece and there wasn't like, any delays or anything, because that would have just been detrimental to the film because we needed our cinematographer there. We needed our producer there. We needed, people to get this thing, moving. So yeah, that's always scary, especially when we had such a tight schedule. Like there was no room for like the little stuff that we did have room for, barely had room for that as far as any error or like delays. Like it was literally just like we needed everyone there. So I'm happy that it wasn't, worse than it was, even though it was definitely exhausting for you guys to get there.
Yeah. It was a long old journey in, and then we went straight from that, building film sets, building the floors, all of that stuff. And yeah, it is just crazy that the day after we finished doing the film sets, we were filming, as in I'm pretty certain the walls of the keeper's room were still wet with paint when we were rolling
Yeah.
the first couple of shots.
Yeah.
Like, people like don't know that, and they also don't know that just like whilst we're filming that, like just actually being there, you just hear like hammers,
Bang, bang.
and saws and stuff going on in the background.
Yeah.
Just all this chaos.
That's one of the real specialties, that the way the Keeper's Diary is set up is to almost be narration only. So there was very little sound capture. I think the one sound capture that I can really remember was the poker scene, which was obviously in a completely different location.
Yep.
But everything else, this was such an eye-opening experience, because yes, I've done short films before, my own short films, limited budget, under $500.
Right.
Nothing to this scale, and you really have to solve problems on an hour by hour basis. Here's a perfect example. So Oscar Mansky, who was playing out, let's call him Albert Wesker, he turned up on set, and his hair was long, which didn't form part of the original.
Oh, I remember that conversation. I remember.
And he had a beard, which obviously Wesker doesn't have a beard either, and he didn't have a black shirt. So we had to quickly. I remember actually asking Callie. I was like, Callie, we need to get to Walmart ASAP.
Yep.
There was one black shirt left. I could not believe it.
That was meant just for Wesker.
Just juiced, I think we bought a razor and some pomade, and we was like, dude, let's just go to work on this man and just try and make him look as Weskery as possible. Unfortunately, the second he walked in that door, we had to do a lot of, every time the shot changed, kind of move his hair to the other side of the frame.
I'm amazed we got away with it. There hasn't been a single comment about that, because I don't know if we're still pixel peeping because we know what to look for. But I think if you look hard, you can see a few of his long hairs still in there. But fortunately, no one has picked up on it.
No, that's it
we
worked
got away
out.
with it.
Yeah, I just remember being in the lab, and then Andy coming in like, man, like, he's still got the long hair. Like, what are we gonna do? And I was just like, oh, dude, this is like, that's not what you want when we're like already setting up for that lab part, because we were already in that other side of the, setting up the cameras and stuff. So that was, like, things like that always happen where it's like you don't expect things to go wrong every hour or so, but sometimes they do, and sometimes you could just turn it around easily, or sometimes it's more of like an obstacle, to get over. So it definitely is a true test of like how well can you deal with stuff on the fly immediately, and like what can you do collectively as a team to kind of overcome that difference, or if it's like a problem with a shot or just whatever it is, or like hair length, for just because again, like
where are the keys?
Where are the keys?
Oh, God. Where are the keys?
Where are the keys? Where are the fucking keys? I like how Beggy mentioned on the episode, she's like, yeah, it might have been my fault for that, because I thought I needed the keys for one thing, and then like I actually was able to get it fixed by somebody else, but then he just went off like looking for the keys because or something like that, and I was just like, that's amazing. But like it's like I'm trying to think of like other funny stuff like that where it's like, I think the only other thing that we had, I mean, I guess like the pig wasn't really a problem. You just have to like, we only had the pig for so long. And dude, that guy was so patient that brought the pig in, because we were not ready that day to start when we wanted to. Like, we actually were a little behind for sure that day. And that was all, like, number one, we were saying this on I was saying this with Andrew and JJ and everyone, like, it seems like everyone around that area is very just like, they're a lot more like, chill, they'll get there when they get there, don't worry about it, I'll help you out. Like, so that really helped us, because that, the guy could have been like, oh, like, you only have this for an hour, and so like things like that could have gotten a lot worse. And I know Beggy mentioned this too, but it ended up being a lot more easier than you would have thought. The only problem was that just trying to move stuff from like the overhead lights from the keeper's set on that side of the mansion to the lab, that was a process in and of itself. And then obviously just trying to get everything in order. So like there's little things like that, but like even when we actually worked with the pig, which was just absolutely ridiculous, like we were just all sitting there, it's like just like, what are we doing right now? Like, and then Andrew's like, you don't get, like, just like going up, like
they literally say, do not work with children, do not work with animals.
Yeah,
if you want an easy shoot. And it's like, we was already really up against it, like super behind. It's like, yeah, let's just throw a live pig into the equation.
Just put some food. He's like,
becoming this fucking pig handler overnight. Just fucking like trying to get this pig.
Well,
in and out
I
of
thought
things.
you guys were all setting me up because I was in that testing area. Everyone else had to leave to not scare the pig. And so I'm there, like all of the trapdoors are like gone down. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, are they bringing out a hunter or something? And then, pig comes out the trapdoor. It's hilarious.
Yeah, like I have great behind the scenes footage of us. I recorded that whole little section of just us just like giggling at each other because we're just like, what is happening right now? Those are just kind of funny moments. And then, it ended up becoming, one of the more like memorable parts of the movie, which is incredible because obviously, this is the first time that, anyone has seen a live action, hunter. And we did it first. I know these upcoming projects are going to say they're going to start doing it, but we're just saying it here. Keeper's Diary did it first, okay? A fan film with fan-backed money did it Hunter. So I'm just saying, and it ended up amazing. So I think, there's little moments like that were hilarious. Same thing with like when we shot in the barn. That was just a nice change of pace because we just wanted to get out of that warehouse for a little bit and breathe some fresh air. And, it was just the smell of cigar and fake cigarettes and, just so many shots for that poker scene and the continuity of like, oh no, wait, like, is that accurate right there? Like there was a lot of that going on, but it was, that was another like fun kind of challenge to overcome, like all the, did you ash the cigarette? Like, how does that look in this scene? Like, when you're have people smoking around a table, there's going to be like so many different inconsistencies that people can pick up on. So I'm sure Andrew got enough shots that we got that whereas it was able to get everything kind of pieced together perfectly in that puzzle. But yeah, as far as like one of the biggest challenges for both of you while we were filming. Anyone can go first, but what do you think was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome? I mean, I know we kind of mentioned a couple of them, but was there one in particular that you guys can think of, whether it's from Andy from a production standpoint, Nougie from a DP standpoint? I just want to hear your thoughts on maybe certain challenges that maybe you did expect and ran into or things that you didn't expect throughout this production.
I would have to say, we have spoken about it a lot. Everyone was really good sports. On that entire trip, everyone was such good sports. It goes without saying, there was a lot of tension at times where it was like, this should have been fucking ready, but quite frankly, it's not, and we've just got to fucking deal with it. And obviously, looking back, it goes back to the sets. Like, I just really wished we would have turned in an ideal world, we would have turned up and everything be ready, because it did. Now more than ever, now that we're looking back, and I appreciate we've seen this 100 times, I think, man, we could have added a little bit more time here. We've had a little bit more time here. We could have slept a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was all a learning experience for me. I mean, another one that was a huge thing to overcome was, dude, our fucking Airbnb. I completely miscalculated that because that was fucking miles away, and when you're already doing a long day, it's almost compounded that you've now got another half an hour journey on top. So it's like you just want to get back and sleep, and it's like, oh fuck, now we've got another half an hour.
Do you guys remember the first night we drove and we're trying to find
went like the wrong way?
It was like Friday the
God,
13th,
location.
the start of every horror movie. I was like, all right, this is not good.
Fucking set of Evil Dead, man. Jesus.
Yeah. And Evil Dead was shot in Michigan, so guess what? It's a perfect, it lines up perfectly. But I was like, is this the right? Because we went up to the house, but we didn't know if it was the right house at first. And I was like, I don't want to drive up into anyone's neck of the woods and they think I'm on their property. Yeah, so no. And then Andrew was in the, I think was it you? And I'm trying to think who was in the grip truck with Andrew, because they were driving it. And it was like they were lost too. It was like we both got lost. Like I found it, but then I psyched myself. Like we psyched ourselves out in the car, and then I was like, I don't know if this is it. And it was. I mean, it was a beautiful setup, to be honest. But yeah, definitely. I think that drive. I think that's why we just ultimately were just like, we'll just go Motel 6 or whatever, just because it was right around the bend. But it was still. I still appreciate
that was my big fuck up. I think if I had the opportunity, say if we was like, we're going to shoot the Keeper's Diary 2 Electric Boogaloo,
Amazing title.
I would probably just say, listen, I'm going to give you a accommodation, whoever's on the set or part of our production. I'm just going to give you a subsistence allowance. So I'm going to give you a rate per day. You guys can just go and source your own hotel. Here's a fair and reasonable contribution towards that. Hopefully that covers it, and then people can make their own choice. Because what I think I was, what as ever is we only get one lot of 50,000, and I wanted to try and maximize it as much.
Absolutely,
as I could. We only get one attempt at it, so it was one of them. I was like, man, perfect. We got an Airbnb, and it fucking suits everyone. And actually, in practice, no. Never doing that again. That was an incorrect call to make. And if I get the opportunity to do it again, I'll definitely just do it individually. Everyone's happy, everyone's got their own space, and everyone wins.
Right. No, absolutely. And I appreciate the efforts on that, because again, like, it was still very nice for that to be set up for everybody, because driving that distance there and back, like, again, we're like, yeah, maybe we'll just do the motel, and it worked out. Like, again, I didn't want anyone to feel a certain way because we weren't showing up at that same exact spot every night. I was just like, this just works better for us, and it's all good. Like, as long as everybody gets,
it's an hour and a half out your day. Like,
right,
that's another hour and a half. We could be doing something else. Like,
yeah, and like you said, very little sleep already when we start. Like, just from the rip, like, just from that first night, because I was so wired from not only driving all night and day, but then helping start to build the sets, and then I'm sitting in the Motel 6, like, we're doing this, like, holy crap, like, we're rolling tomorrow. Like, I was so wired. So some of that went into not getting much sleep too, because like I just had to shut my brain off kind of and just be like, all right, you need rest. And it's super important to get rest when you're working under those conditions where, again, some stuff or some tension can be there sometimes if certain things don't turn up the way it should, or like little things like that. But like, we really did keep it together, and there wasn't any like issues, and we were all sharing the same catered food, and we were all kind of like vibing off the same energy. Once we started to get that, like you said, it's a certain vibe when you have Resident Evil fans that all have eyes on the prize and making sure certain things are where they are. So I think that definitely got us through, and just like us, doing the, making jokes like, oh yeah, bud, like things like that, and just little things to keep us giggling throughout, because you kind of need that. Like, obviously you got to work, you got to stay in it, but like, it wasn't so just like, mean mugging it the whole time. Like, we were trying to, like, obviously, like, there were times where our brain was like literally shutting off. Like, I remember like looking at Nougie, you're just like, dude, I'm so just zonked right now, like, because you're just tired as hell, man. Like, you're sitting there like the 9th or 10th hour that day, and you're just like, this is like after 5 days of sleeping however many hours per night, and it's just like, yeah, it's your brains tends to do that, where you're just kind of like, well, okay, like, where are we at again? But yeah, you had to keep basically we had each other, and I think that's what made it I guess get through those little tough spots here and there.
Oh man, like, morale within the team is like one of the most important parts on a project like this. I mean, I've made myself famous for 20 years for staying awake for 24 hours at a time playing games, but that was zero preparation for trying to do a week with almost no sleep. It's really, really tricky. So I think, for me, the biggest thing was just time. And it's hard because, again, like as Andy said, like, trying to find the right budget that's suitable for this project is a really, really important thing. Getting the wrong number is the difference between this project potentially happening or not happening. But the problem is that just time is expensive when you're trying to pay for a lot of people, accommodation, food, like, by the hour, things add up really, really quickly. I think, like, many people who haven't worked within film that don't realise is that there's just so many bodies, and that bodies need to be fed. They need, in this case, we had to pay for like porta potties and like stuff like that. It's just being there is expensive. So it just meant that we had to be really, really efficient with our time, and with just having a really short amount of time just meant that we didn't have the luxury of time for, like, bigger kind of breaks that we'd maybe have, or originally we'd spoken about like doing like a stream, because we had like all of us there, and like Beggy, the row team, we're like, cool, let's do like a stream, like once we finished filming, and we were all way too fucked.
Oh
to
yeah.
do that.
We were going to do a rap
But-
party as well, you know, like a whole rap
Yeah,
party.
we wanted to do all that, and it just didn't. We literally were, we went, like I said, we went to that last part in Michigan, and we were just shooting. Like I think like the other people, they were able to stream, but we were like, we're still working. Like we have to finish this. Like we're doing this, and literally. And we'll talk about that last night in a little bit, but like the sun was up, guys, and we were leaving that last set,
It was
and
7
then
a.m.
yeah,
I went to McDonald's, obviously.
I mean,
went
come on,
to
you got to.
McDonald's, and it was 7 a.m. It was
Yeah.
literally 7 a.m. when me and Andrew drove out of fucking Holly, Michigan, or wherever it was.
Yeah, we I think me, Nougie, and Callie arrived at the Airbnb at like it was like 8 a.m. maybe 8:30. It was like right around there, and we were just like, again, waking up that next day. I was like, oh, we have to do something, right? We have to do something, and we didn't because like we were done. Like that next day when you wake up, you're immediately like, I got to get up and you know. But it was like just chilling.
Nothing was a better feeling than we was all round. And a huge shout out to Mama and Papa Sorlo, man, because they hooked us up.
They're a blessing.
With a trailer on a private camp somewhere. Nothing beats the feeling of zooting with Charlie fucking Kozlowski watching Resident Evil 1, dude.
Dude, that was amazing. That's like yeah, we had a bonfire. It was like that was kind of like our little like detour celebration of like, all right, we got this done. And dude, like let me tell you, Charlie it literally is the most patient dude ever as far as like the conditions that he worked under, and like it was cold in that warehouse, and like yeah, the fact that we were able to kick back, you know, everything was chill, and we were able to just like, you know, I just remember just seeing him in the bed, just like he still had his jacket on. He was just like just chilling, just like I was like, dude, this guy deserves this rest right now. He worked his ass off, just like how all of us did, but he was like, you know, he had to sit there in a short sleeve in this cold, you know, he was like, he had to huddle around the heater between takes. I mean, the conditions were really cold, by the way, guys. I don't know if people know this, but yeah, we were it was, you know, in October, but in Michigan, it's a lot more colder than at least I'm used to over here in South Jersey, where like, oh yeah, throw on a hoodie, it's fine. But when you're in that warehouse, like if you see some of those shots, we're all wearing hoodies, we all have jackets on.
So many layers.
Yeah, man. So like, and then sometimes, you know, like we actually got a break that last night where it was like, it was actually nice out, and then it just rained on us, like on that kennel shoot. So that was like the one little, you know, speck of nice weather that we had that whole time. But, you know, yeah, sometimes when like actors are in like cold conditions, they can easily be like, all right, like when are we getting this done? Like, all right, is that good enough? Like he was super patient. He was laughing with us in between. You know, you got to keep the spirits up. And Charlie was an absolute angel, man. Seriously.
I don't want to say at his age because that's extremely patronizing, but like for a man of his age to go through that fucking those hours was unbelievable, and he was such a good sport about it.
Really
He didn't-
was.
he
Such a
didn't
good
moan
sport. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is that he really did pay attention to, you know, just like not only the craft, but just like what went into it. And I think he really appreciated all of us just like, you know, putting in all the work. Like he saw everybody that was really putting in 150%. And yeah, it was amazing to be able to hang out with them, to be able to kick back and just say, wow, we just did a thing. Like, yeah, that last night where we were able to kind of like, you know, stay at the trailer, and it was very, very welcoming, and it was just nice. It was just nice to be able to like, I think we watched a little bit of the fight that was on. There was a fight that was on that night. I think we beamed it up on one of the TVs. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Tyson Fury and Garnu, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that was cool. That was like our little like, okay, we're finally like we can actually hang out. We don't have to work anymore. It was again very odd feeling because we just kept going and going. And then yeah, we went out and had a really nice lunch, and it was just it was a nice way to top it off. And again, very very crazy memories that we'll just never forget. And then like yeah, Andrew's parents were just very nice in that regard, and because we were just like, well, what do we do from here? You know, like do we go get a place, or they just put us up there, like, which again they didn't have to do.
that was really good sports. They know Andrew is an absolute madman. So, and to be fair, man, they was there the entire the every step of the way. They was such good sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think as far as like, you know, a lot of the like I think even with some of the different challenges that we were able to kind of get through, you know, I think that's again like you always learn for the next time. So I think these conditions or certain things that we can adjust for another potential project in the future, that's why it's like, I think when we at least this being our first, it's always going to be the first. So there's always going to be little holes here and there that you could be like, all right, we could patch this up next time, make sure this is good. So it's all an experience. It's all part of that, that learning experience. And one of the other challenges, I think, and again, we'll talk about that last night. So we basically had a skeleton crew. It was essentially us in this panel right here. It was Andrew. It was Charlie, obviously. It was Callie, and it was Paige, our makeup person. And I think that was it. It literally was but we had 40 to 50 seconds of footage we needed to film, and we drove 6.5 hours to do it. And that's just because that's the kennel that would allow us to film. I mean, I know Andrew looked at a couple different places around that were closer. These were the ones that were willing to have us come in their space and shoot all night. We got there at 9, maybe 10. Andrew's parents were there as well, obviously. And some people were able to take little naps here and there while we were setting up. But it was basically oh man, this weather's great. And then as we're setting up, rain clouds come in and it starts raining. And we have to sit there and cover the lights, we're setting up all this stuff. And
none of which was waterproof, by the way. And
no.
Oh my God. We got hit with some bills out of the rental company place, but ironically, none of it was to do with damage to the equipment. How on earth we managed to get all the way back to Chicago with 100% of the gear completely intact? Bearing in mind we was in a dilapidated warehouse, which was previously used for iron castings or something. So a proper dirty, dilapidated warehouse. Then we went to a shoot on effectively an open kennel, an open route, an open areaed kennel when it was pissing down. I don't know how none of the equipment got ruined. The big charge that I had was driving the actual van itself. They hit me with a mileage thing, which was totally fair and reasonable. It was just a bit of an oversight. And again,
Sure.
That's something else you need to consider. Yes, we got all the gear in one place, but now all of these additional charges are adding up. You're like, oh,
they looked at that speedometer. They're like, what?
Yeah, it was,
like a berry.
crazy.
What?
That was another thing. Budget wise, is we'd assembled our budget in June or whenever, and then when we went to shoot in October, it was right, let's go and order everything. And it was right, insurance is now $1,000 more. The camera rental equipment's gone up a little bit, or no, actually, I think they held their rates, which is really, really good. The catering was more money because Andrew was like, oh yeah, I think she said $3,500. Oh, well, did she say $3,000? Or did she say $3,500? Because that's quite an implication if we're out by that right. figure. Now, fortunately, it was lower figure, so it wasn't too bad. And then it was people's flights, we had a figure for, but now, wars have gone on and fuel's now really expensive. The cost of flights have now gone up. So everything had a fucking implication. But guess what? We're on a price. We're on a lump sum agreement. We can't just go back cap in hand to our followers and be like, please, sir, can I have some more? It's not gonna happen. No way.
I really love the dedication to the part of the cap.
He went to grab that
commitment. I like that.
That's incredible.
But we could. You can't especially you're standing up there. You have a vision. People have bought into this vision. You have to deliver any means necessary at that point, even if it means divulging your own funds. You have to make
exactly.
It happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's when you don't kind of think of those little things, like I said, it's all things that you kind of learn from that first time doing it, experience. So I think that's why I think it will be nicely applied to if we get a chance to do it again. And so I think even with that last night, like you said, something easily could have went screw up. We were actually putting umbrellas. They actually had an umbrella that was the umbrella logo, which was funny. You remember that?
So weird.
That was
I found the photo in the behind the scenes the other day. I was like, what?
Yeah, that was a complete coincidence.
On top of that, Anthony, something did go wrong because the haze machine died.
Yes,
if you remember.
It did.
Oh my god!
The last few shots, the haze machine just stopped hazing, and we were like, Oh,
intended.
But,
It's intended.
yeah.
I felt like the whole of the Keeper's Diary, you know, we're talking about one, like being pretty sleep deprived for a week. We're talking about, you know, quite a stressful situation of like lots of moving parts trying to do that. That's fine. We're talking about being in the fucking Keeper's room for like 5 days non-stop. It was like being in the Saw film or something. You just kind of lose your mind being in that same spot. All those things are fine. Managed to, you know, keep our patience with all those things. The last night in the dog kennels, and it's just like 4 o'clock in the morning. We've got 99% of the film done. Literally, the end is in sight. We're almost there. And we're just trying to do these things with some dogs. We're literally trying to direct dogs which don't respond to English.
Nope.
They only respond in German. And so it's like 4 o'clock in the morning and Andrew is trying to direct these dogs in German. And they're just not listening. And I'm just there, the camera. It's like 4 o'clock. I'm just so tired. I'm like, this is going to break me.
Yeah, like,
and
we're
then
just
I
like,
think
what
the
happened?
moment when the haze had just stopped working, I almost lost my shit. I think that was
I was like,
that
Nougie,
was almost the final straw
yeah,
for me. Yeah,
because I was in charge of, like, at that point, because we only had so many people, I was also trying to move the haze machine and stuff. And I just remember at one point, I'm like, Nougie, it's not, nothing's coming out. I don't know what's happening. And then it was like, it was like we're right there. We're like everything was about to be in the can. And there's just like, yeah, that one little bit of no haze that we had to deal with, which I guess it doesn't really look too bad, I guess, in the final product. But yeah, we were just kind of like, man, and yeah, directing animals on an all-night shoot. I mean, yeah, it was just them reacting to Charlie the way we wanted them to was the problem, because he'd come in and we wanted them to obviously, you know, jump at him and him to go back and stuff like that. And then it was just a lot, man, like to do that. And then, yeah, you and Andrew were literally in there, like in the like shooting these dogs, you know what I mean? Like with the camera, just like, all right, like are they going to do it? Like, are they going to actually respond this time? And yeah, you got to talk to them in German. It was such again, one of those, like, what are we doing? This is an all-night shoot. People are starting to get punchy and tired. I remember there was one point where Charlie's like, because Andrew's just like, all right, yeah, action. And then he's just like, what am I doing? Like, because Charlie's just like, you didn't give me anything to, you know, he's kind of like, what's happening? Like, you're not really giving me anything to work with here. Like, it was just one of those, like, we just started to lose, like, brain power, you know? It's like, yeah. And I remember, like, you know, because, man, poor Andy, too. You were taking a little nap in the van at one point, because you were just like, yeah, I have to just just shut my eyes for like an hour. Like, you weren't asleep the whole night, but you were like, I need to, like, just.
Yeah, it got to the point where I was like, I'd driven that entire day, because I was like, it's really imperative that Andrew is on his game, because he is the one that is going to fucking take us to the promised land. So I'm more than happy fucking burn myself absolutely fucking dead.
Yeah.
As long as he is good, and he fortunately he slept most of the way, so he carried on through. But I was like, dude, like, you guys are fucking doing what you need to do it.
Yeah, you helped us set up and everything too.
Left, bro. I'm going to sleep.
Right? Yeah, you helped us set up too. So like, once everything was set up, you're like, all right, good. All right, I'm just gonna take a little nap. And it's like, yeah, same thing with like Andrew's parents. Like, they were able to kind of sleep as well, because they were transporting Charlie. So it was just like, yeah, it was very. That was definitely one of the biggest challenges, I think, overall, because, again, it was just us. It was like, again, the true skeleton crew just trying to get that thing finished. And then, obviously, you know, you still needed to wait around because we needed to get some of the makeup stuff done, which obviously does take a little bit, but we were able to have all that stuff on standby. So by the time we were done, we're like, okay, I think this is it now. Like, I think we got everything we wanted to get. And yeah, that was just a very surreal experience. And the Dobermans were very nice. The people there were awesome. You know, they were like really patient, to let us, you know, I don't know how many times we hit our head on that, like that beam where you would like duck your head. It's like, Charlie hit his head. Ant hit his head. All right. It's like everyone was just hitting their head on the fucking beam to duck under the kennel. Yeah, they gave us chili when we got there. Remember that? And then we were just like, oh, yeah, this is, you know, at least we got a good meal in before we started. So it was, yeah, definitely when you're running on fumes, that definitely was probably the most challenging. when it comes to like just conditions, I think, because everything was wearing down. Like all those nights of no sleep was just, you felt it that night. Like you just felt it around your eyes. Like you're just like, fuck, my eyes are heavy, man.
This is where Nougie introduced me to the gateway drug known as melatonin.
Oh yeah.
Because honestly,
it was crucial.
When we got back to the lodge every night, it was like dishing out drugs at a party. When we got back, it was like, all right, Andrew, melatonin, Charlie, melatonin, Andy, melatonin.
Yeah.
Man, like, it's honestly, like, I'm constantly traveling different countries for shoots all over the place, constantly running through different time zones, and when you end up going onto a film set, you guys know now how on you need to be. So many things you're processing at once. You need a good night's sleep. And so just like melatonin, I've just found when you're going into a different country on a completely different time scale, especially like Michigan, which I think was like, what, 6 hour time difference to what we had in the UK?
I think so. Yeah.
6 and 5, because when
we're going in between the time zones.
Yeah, when we was in the Upper Peninsula, it was 6. But then when we went to the other shoot, that was really weird. Like crossing the time zone. Never done that before.
Yeah, that was odd. So yeah, that definitely helped with that. But oh man, that last night, whew, that was tough. But one thing I will say is that when I first heard that we were going to have to drive like 6-7 hours to get to the kennels on the last day, after like, you know, constant 20-hour days and everything we've been doing, I was just like, really? We really can't find a fucking dog kennels closer than a 7-hour drive. Is this really it? But when we got there and it was all lit and there was like the moonlight that's like shining through like all of the chain link fencing, you can see all of those Dobermans in the kennels. I was like, all right,
yeah.
Okay,
this
was worth it.
Yeah,
and the rain, one of my favorite scenes.
Like the rain on his visor, like that was all accidental because we didn't know it was going to rain, and it looked so good in the final
really
product.
Cool.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah, like when he goes, like I'm just watching it back now. There's a cracking shot you did here, Luke, of the keeper, Charlie entering the kennel, and the dog looks up and follows him. Man, oh
yeah,
just fucking cinema, dude.
Yeah,
that shot was great. One shot which was in an earlier cut, which most people won't know about, which Anne also fed back on, there was this one cut where obviously we're trying to set this scene where the dogs are like quite hostile to Charlie being infected. And there's this one point where after the dog like comes up and barks at him, Charlie just goes and sort of leans back on the fence, and behind him you can just see this dog just sort of like popping up behind him trying to sniff him. And me and Anne were just like, dude, that's not the right vibe.
Yeah.
He's changed the shot. So I think we found a better take where the dog wasn't looking quite so soppy in the back.
Yeah, like, hey buddy, what's going on? Like, you know, he just wanted to That was amazing. Yeah, like, I mean, it's crazy. I didn't know that, you know, like, again, I've never worked with, like, you know, animals or dogs or anything like that before. So, yeah, that was just, again, like, overcoming that was, like, something I guess we never expected to be doing within that week's time. But, yeah, I do remember, like, when we were still on the warehouse set, or we were somewhere the day before, then I remember when he mentioned where it is. And I'm like, where is it in Michigan? And I punch it in. I'm like, yeah, Nougie, it's 6 hours, man. So you know, so and then I was just like, just sleep. Like you were able to sleep. Like Callie was sleeping, and I was just like, you know, we were just driving. So I think that that helped too. When you know we were able to kind of, you know, at least help each other out in that regard. You know, so you didn't have to worry too much about you know, being completely, even though we were still really tired. And sometimes you only get so much sleep in a car, obviously, because it's, you know, moving constantly. But you know, it was yeah, I mean that yeah, then after that I think we drove well, I think at that point the next day we didn't have to drive too much further to where like we stayed that next night. So it was still like we were relative, like we stayed that night at the Airbnb and then essentially left by like noon, I think, and then we had some
it was like
food.
a 40-minute drive. I think that was the shortest drive we had in the entire shoot.
It was. Yeah, I was like, all right, it's already 8 or it's already 7:30. All right, it's 40 minutes, not bad. Let's just do it. Like I already drove, you know, X amount to get here. Let's just do it, and you know, we'll all have a bed, and it's all good, and it was cool. But yeah, As far as like, I mean, Nougie, I wanted to talk about, as far as like the shots that you were able to get, like, do you have one particular that's like your favorite that you pulled off? Because I'm not just blowing smoke, but man, like the cinematography work you did on this was tremendous, and the color grading and everything was spot on, and that really does make the vibe. Obviously, like, you need to have shots that look and feel like Resident Evil. You need to have a color grade that looks and feels like Resident Evil, which Remake inspired you for the color palette. But what was like your favorite shot that you were able to pull off?
Oh, that's such a tough question.
A lot of amazing ones in there, but like I'm sure there's maybe a couple that come to mind.
I couldn't pin it down to a shot as such, but definitely a sequence. I think it's more from the vibe that we had when we were filming it, and that's the Jill hallway scene.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, like, after we'd got the lighting all up, because we were faffing around with that for a long time. It's like really trying to make sure it nailed those RE1 R vibes. And I just remember that moment when it was done, and Gracie, the actress who played Jill, walks in. She's there, like, in the shot. We've got the monitor up so everyone can see, like, what we're just about to shoot. And everyone is just constantly like, oh, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like, everyone's just, like, marking out, losing their shit. So, like, this is right. This is, like, looking really good. And just every single shot in that hallway, like, you could just feel the tension. Like, everyone was so locked in. You could hear a pin drop.
Oh yeah,
because it was just that tense. Like, yeah, that was a fun scene to do.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely memorable, especially because we're looking at each other, just like, that's Jill. Like, that is Jill. You know what I mean? It's such a funny, like, moment. Like you said, we definitely were marking out and just like, trying to keep it together, because we're just like, this is fucking awesome, but we got to, keep a level of like, we got to, get through this. And yeah, Gracie was also a champ, and that was so, like, I don't know if it'll come out in like a blooper reel or something, but the shot of the typewriter when we just had the giggles, like, we were like, so I think that was like the last thing in the keeper's room I think that we were shooting. I don't know, we might have shot a little bit more, but I just remember at that point we were just giggling at just like every little thing, and just that shot of her approaching the typewriter and just laughing, like, that was just so funny. Like, that was
took
memorable.
So many takes to get right. Yeah, she just couldn't keep it straight.
Yeah, it's like once it starts the laughter, sometimes it's hard to, like, it's just tough because we're all just giggling. We're just like, again, running off of 4 hours of sleep. Like, anything could be funny to us at that point, and it was just like, it was that was a very memorable thing. But yeah, man, just the way we were able to get the stuff within the hallway looking like just spot on, and the lock picking, everything was just like, we really hope that was worth it for people to see an accurate Jill. And just, again, like, it's just something where we were just like, holy crap, is this happening? And yeah, that was definitely one of those moments. I'm happy you mentioned that, because yeah, that was, man, that just seeing all that finally, and again, like, we're seeing the skeletal stuff get built, and then when you finally see it through the monitor, you're just like, wow, like, this is what we made this set look like. So very, very fulfilling just from seeing that. And then when you see it all done and color graded, what you're able to do with it was fantastic. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me as well. For your camera choice, Nougie, what was that decision? Because originally it was going to be a Sony, I think it was forget the model. It was
FX9.
That's what it was. And then you went with the red Komodo. So what was that decision like to move over to that camera?
Right. Sorry, yeah, you asked me this earlier. I think we got a little bit.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
But yeah, as you can see behind me, this isn't actually the FX9. Sadly, my FX9 actually got stolen a few weeks ago, which really sucks. That's a story for another day. But yeah, I primarily work with Sony cameras. This is the Sony FX6. It's like a small version of the FX9. Yeah, I own one of these, and I used to own the FX9. But yeah, they're great cameras. I use them all the time. Really, really nice. What's great about them is they've got a full frame sensor. So it's like a very, very big sensor, lets a lot of light in, means that you get really shallow depth of field with the kind of lenses you're getting, which I think is imperative for Resident Evil. I think that's the kind of style and the look, like very cinematic, shallow, blurry depth of field is the kind of vibe that people go for. And also is really good in low light. And obviously Resident Evil, we're using a lot of low lighting scenarios. Obviously we're still lighting the scenes, but I think when you have a low lighting camera, it just kind of opens up a few more options. However, that was what I owned. We'd spoken about shooting on a Red, potentially, but the issue is just that this would mean actually having to hire in a camera externally. So budget-wise, it would make some bigger financial implications. Fortunately for us, from the, what was it, Indiegogo? Was that the campaign where it's held? Yeah, from the Indiegogo campaign, we actually smashed our target. We got more money than was initially raised. So that actually meant that we had a few more options for what we could do. And so I actually pitched the idea to Andy and Andrew and just said, look, I've got an idea where I'd really like to shoot this on a Red Komodo. I've spoken to the rental house. They'll give us an unbelievably good price because they're really trying to support us on this project. And there's also a lens choice that I want to use, which was the Atlas Orion anamorphic lenses. And I'm sure loads of people listening to the podcast won't know what a lot of that terminology means, but basically anamorphic lenses are what was used a lot in earlier cinema, specifically in like the spaghetti western movies, like Clint Eastwood movies, things like that. Movies which were shot in CinemaScope, so the really thin letterboxing kind of films. A lot of those were shot with anamorphic lenses, and anamorphic just kind of creates a very different perspective. It's more kind of warped, stretched, and blurry, and in many senses it's a little bit uneasy because there's a science about how it sort of stretches circles and shapes into different shapes. So it's like a really odd way of looking. Like most, phone cameras and webcams, things like that, don't have that kind of perspective at all. So I thought that anamorphic would be an interesting way to try and shoot this. And also, for all of the flaws that Welcome to Raccoon City has, I actually think that the cinematography in it is actually pretty good. If you forget about the lore and all of the issues we have with the characters, how it's actually been shot and lit is actually really good. And that was also shot with anamorphic lenses and gave me the idea of thinking that actually, the Spencer Mansion could be told through a completely different lens through doing this. And so, I pitched these ideas to Andy and Andrew. We had the extra budget. They were up for it. So, we got the Red Komodo. And that just made the fact that we could actually shoot the film raw. I think that's the biggest difference really between like an FX6, FX9 or Red Komodo, is that you can actually shoot stuff raw. Basically, you've just got so much more information there when you come to color grading, when you're doing post-production. Obviously, we had a lot of post-production that happened on this. Loads of VFX, loads of rotoscoping, loads of compositing. From actually having all of that extra raw camera data there, it just meant that there was a lot more stuff that the VFX team could do in post. And also from the color grading, which I did, I really insisted in being the color grader on this. I have it happen quite often where you work on a project, you've got an idea in mind, you shoot it, you light it, and then someone inexperienced can come along, don't really know how color works, and they can completely change what you had in mind for your shots. I've had it happen a couple of times before, and I was like, it's not happening to this project. I don't care whether I've got to work for free for a couple of months. I'm color grading this myself. I color graded it, and I was really, really scientific with it. I literally was going through finding frames of RE1 remake. I would have them on my screen here. I'd have the whole thing, and then I'd have on this screen our film, and I would try and find all of the right sort of color tones using the RE1 remake color palette to try and get that. And I really do feel like that's come across. The kind of sepia, warm tones of the Keeper's room, and then the more sort of moonlit blue colours of the hallway. I think they all sort of come across. So those are my ideas I was going for.
Absolutely. No, that's great that you explained that too, because again, this is showing what, when you have RE fans at the wheel of this thing, there's a little attention to details is something that any other studio or whoever could just be like, whatever, we'll just use. But like, you actually really thought about it, and I was able to pick your brain about it kind of when I was going to be put on the project as a first AC, which is a camera assistant. So I was able to help Nougie throughout this project. If you guys don't know what I did, that for people that are watching or listening, I was basically helping Nougie switch lenses, keep batteries charged, doing the slate. doing all that stuff. So just making sure that everything was easily accessible for the right shot at the right time. Sometimes Nougie and Andrew would be looking at something and they're like, you know what? Maybe we should try it with this lens. Maybe we should try it with, so it's like, you have to be ready to constantly switch them out and put them back in the case. Make sure all the equipment is also safe because things can happen on set. People can accidentally trip or fall. You got to make sure all that stuff is in a safe location. So there's a lot of just moving parts with that. But yeah, seeing you work off with what Andrew wanted to do. And then also we got to shout out Josh, our lighting guy, because he was able to really take good direction from you, Nougie, who was able to you were really very specific with the lighting. I just want to let people know, Nougie was very he had stuff on an app as well, to be able to control stuff. But you were really we got to get this, we got to get this right. And that's what really taught me also just how important not only the lenses and the different choices creatively with that, but just the lighting and how that is really super important, especially with something like Resident Evil, where people are going to be looking for a certain aesthetic. So that was definitely something that I enjoyed watching everyone work off of each other, and then also to learn in that process. So
I think looking back at it critically, this is one of the problems that I've always suffered as a filmmaker, and most filmmakers do, being really perfectionist about stuff. I never come away from a project being that was absolutely perfect, great, I'm great,
yeah,
that's it, on to the next thing. It's just I come away from so many projects being I hate what I've done, I hate what I've shot, because I'm literally looking at minute details that I can't unsee. Most people won't ever fucking notice at all. And this is going back to Andy's point earlier, with the edit. You're kind of obsessing over these 1% little minute details. And generally, I was pretty, considering the budget constraints, crew size we had, time like that, everything, I was generally pretty happy with what we had. I think my biggest criticism technically was just the keeper's room, the lighting in it. I just really wish I had a bit more time to finesse it, especially because it's just so present in so many scenes. It's not just 30, 60 seconds of the film. It's in so many scenes. And I just wish that, we had issues with set building and painting and constructing stuff. But I think just having an extra half a day or even a day to just really, really finesse the lighting and get that mood right is probably the thing that I would go back and do if I could, go and change the project. But other than that, I'm really happy with what we've achieved. And as you said, many, many lessons learned, and this is all just great life skills to take on to hopefully any future projects that we do together.
Absolutely. And I think that transitions great into this next question. What did, again, whoever wants to go first, but, what is the one thing that we overall, learned from this whole experience, whether it's one thing that you took away when it was all said and done?
It's a lot easier to fucking talk the talk than it is to fucking walk the walk. A lot of people, I'm telling you, a lot of people will say, I can do a Resident Evil film. This is what I would do. And when it actually comes to it, it is so much harder than you think. You think, yeah, I know the ins and outs of Resident Evil. Dude, that makes up a fucking millimeter or whatever the imperial measurement is for our American friends. It makes up a millimeter of things that you're actually going to need. That. The fact that we had fantastic Resident Evil content creators is on this project is fantastic, but that was such a small amount of stuff that's needed to
absolutely
get this project over the line. You needed fucking budgeting skills. You needed interpersonal skills, just communication with everyone. You needed dude, something you said an hour ago is now not true. You've now got to adapt to that. Time management. Unbelievable. So many things could have really, really put this project into turmoil, but it didn't, because people just managed themselves appropriately.
Absolutely.
So yes, we put our balls on the block. It was extremely, extremely tough. And next time somebody says, there'll be inevitable criticisms. I just hope that people people don't say, yeah, I could do that. That's a really easy thing to do, because let me tell you, this project's taken years off my life.
That or the warehouse, I'm not sure. You know, it could be a combination of both.
Yeah, I'm coming away with a chronic condition for sure.
Yeah. Our fingernails were like, you know, dirty for like a week after probably. Yeah, no, it was yeah, no, you're right, man. I mean, I think it's what, but again, you know, when you are finally doing it and then you notice like, okay, yeah, these things are going to be, people are going to ask questions or think, you know, people want an answer for these, you know, said things, and you need to have an answer for them. You know, if things change on the set,
dude. You can't fucking pass it. Like, you just got to stand up there and be fucking accountable. It can't just be, oh, I'm doing my best. Well, guess what, man? Your best isn't good enough. So you got to fucking adapt and fucking make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
No one can do it for you. You've got to do it yourself.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the reality of like, you know, any set or anything where it's like, you know, those things are going to happen. It's not all, you know, it isn't all like, you know, glossy, positive all the time. There is going to be a little bit of like tension or like a little bit of like push and pull. But sometimes, again, like we said, we always still, thankfully, and I'm grateful for this, that we kept a good vibe and there wasn't, you know, anything, you know, substantial that like, you know, caused any issues. You know, it was just more of like, okay, we're only so, there's only so many people. We can only stretch ourselves to so many different hats. So I think that's the biggest, like, you know, challenge that you find with smaller productions. But again, all learning for next time. But what about you, Nougie? What's the one thing that yourself, whether it's just from a DP standpoint or just working on a film like this?
My answer's going to be a little bit contrasty to Andy's, but
Okay.
I totally agree with everything you said. And this is also cheesy as fuck to say, but it is so true, is that passion comes first. Because that is what has driven this entire project from start to finish. Andrew was passionate about making something for fans, by fans, that fans are proud of. That is what has got us from the start to the end. Throughout production, throughout all of those changes that we went through, everyone's had their moments of being stressed, tired, whatever it may be. But whenever you just remember where you are and who you're with, it just refills you with that confidence of, we need to keep doing this. We've got to continue with this project. And just as we were saying like earlier, like the camaraderie of the passion of everyone. You know, we're all here for Resident Evil. We all have this shared love of just one thing. And without that, you know, we'd be like, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we staying awake this long?
Yeah.
Why are we in this dusty old warehouse, like, shortening our lives?
No, you're right. Like, there are 100 other things we could have been doing than being in a dilapidated warehouse.
Yep.
Across the ocean.
Yeah. Even though it was tough in the moment, it's still one of one of my favorite things that I think I've been a part of in my lifetime, just because it has been a dream come true for me. And I think, and yeah, just the fact that like the little bits that you don't like notice. Like I remember like when I went to the UK for the first time and meeting you guys, and it was like such an amazing experience, and people that I've never met saying that they know my channel and stuff, like that was already just like, what the hell, you know, like that was already like a pinch me moment. And then like it was, and then I remember that was, I think it was that the year you told me about Keeper's Diary, Andy? I'm pretty sure you did, or you might have mentioned it. Like, do you know Andrew? Do you know, you know, I think you mentioned it. And then just, I started to see like the ball start rolling, and I didn't know how, you know, that, I think it was, and then by 2023, when we did the other meetup, and that's when, you know, it was like, at that point, pretty much talking in the talks, we kept it under wraps, but like, all right, Nougie's going to be the cinematographer. And then he asked me to help. And again, it seemed like it just happened like that. Like it was just such a fast thing, but it did take a couple years in the making for all of this to get to, like, from, you know, the teaser that was put up and everything, from, you know, the campaign. So it was fun. Even like little details. Like I remember like when I first went to the UK, and I was able to have lunch with Pablo Kuntz, who plays, you know, the voice actor of Wesker in the first Resident Evil. For people that don't know, you should know if you're an RE fan. But he was just such a nice guy, and I was like, hey man, you know, you should come and hang out, you know, at the meetup. And, you know, that was more like last minute because it was like the next day or the day after, right? And he's like, oh, no, man, you know, definitely. And then I put him in contact with Nougie, and then he comes up to the meetup, and then he's like hanging out with fans. And then that's when Andy was actually, yeah, oh, yeah. And like, Andy was able to pitch him that idea that next year at the meetup, you know, when he was able to talk to him about Keeper's Diary and really let him know what was going. So it's just funny how like little things, like it's like we all help each other in little ways, or like we all come together and see these moments of the fans just being super grateful. And then, yeah, it's just, it was just like that. It was like immediately like, hey, you know, do you want to be, do you want to be on this project? And then by August, I think, Andy, that's when everything launched for Indiegogo, or it was like July or August of that year. And I was just like, holy crap. Like once again, it just seemed like it is a long process when you think 2 years in the making. Yes. But once like that project, that Indiegogo was like launched, it was like, we're just moving. Like it was like just, you know, obviously we had to hit the goal, but then once we smashed the goal and we're just like, okay, like we're here. It just seemed like it happened in such a short time. I just remember being on set. I'm just like, dude, it just seems like yesterday I was in the UK talking to these guys about potentially helping with the project, which was just a dream come true. So yeah, it's just kind of funny how the concept of time, like time doesn't exist sometimes. You're just like, dude, what is happening, you know? And it all happens for a reason. All the timing and the planning, everything that we did, you know, I think that built to something very special. For sure.
Yeah. It was 4 months. It was 4 months from when we were sat at the Resident Evil Challenger meetup, just literally shooting the shit at 1 o'clock in the morning, couple of whiskeys in, being like, oh, maybe we could do a Resident Evil fan film together. 4 months, and then we're there on the Keeper's Diary set filming it. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Like, at that point as well, like with any director, you need a producer that really believes in your idea. Like really wants to get the idea off the ground, and I do like to think that Andrew would have struggled to deliver that by himself, because it's just too much to deliver by yourself. You needed somebody who was equally as passionate about the idea, even though creatively I had a different vision for it. I still wanted to implement his vision for the Keeper's Diary, and you know, even when we was at a meetup and it was like, hey, man, I got this idea. I might run past you.
Yeah.
What do you think? And like both of you, and even when we did the Resident Evil 3 challenge, and we spoke about it there.
Yep, that was another.
I still think, and you know, I was talking to like my wife about it, and I still think that people weren't necessarily bought into it. They was like, oh yeah, okay, Andy, we'll see. Let's see if it all comes off as it does. And you know, we did the crowdfunding, and dude, the numbers grew and grew and grew, and I was like, holy shit, like this is actually going to happen. Like we are doing this. There was no doubt in my mind that we wouldn't achieve it, but it's like, holy shit, yeah, like this is happening. We're going to deliver. And the second we got through the crowdfunding campaign, I was like, right, now it's out. People have put their faith in us now. People have put their hands in their pockets and put faith in us. We have to deliver at all costs. And now it's out. People, family members and people online, they're just so unbelievably like positive about it. They're like, you had a vision with somebody else online you'd never met in your life. You just was in the same circles, and you've delivered it. Like it's out there now. You can't take it back.
Yeah,
it's tattooed on life's history.
It's out there for the ages now. It's like it's really it's just incredible. And what are we up to now view wise? Because it's like, you know,
I think we just hit 70k in just over 24 hours. 74k.
Dude, that's the first time I'm hearing that number. That is, wow. I don't even know what to say.
There was some serious, early on in the campaign, there was some serious worries about Capcom, and obviously Capcom did contact us. Like I've discussed this openly on socials and everything like that, because the one thing you have to be with a campaign like this where you're using other people's money is you have to be open and honest where possible. And yeah, Capcom reached out to us very, very early on, and they was like, hey guys,
what are you doing?
See this campaign you got going on? What's all that about then? how are you funding it? And are you making any money from it? And obviously, I went back to him and I said, yes, thank you for contacting us. I was very firm, but I was very kind, but I was very, very firm because at the end of the day, this is a derivative works. If we want to spend our own money, I appreciate it's other people's own money. If we want to spend our own money making fan projects, we should absolutely be entitled to do that, as long as we're not making any money from it. And I said it'd be extremely disappointing if we go through all of this and Capcom decide to I'll put this in the email. It would be extremely disappointing if we go through this whole exercise and Capcom take it down, knowing that Resident Evil content creators are involved in this, because you're gonna put a bad taste in people's mouths from a PR point of view. Like, fans want to produce a film; they're not hurting anyone. We've been very clear that we're not making any money from it. It's not going to be monetized, etc. What's the harm in it? It's no different than if us three fucking picked up our camera and dressed up like the keeper. Yeah, it's on a bigger scale, but ultimately it's the same idea.
Yeah, to show it's not hurting, hurting the product.
It's Capcom's history with how they've punished like other fan-made content. It's just really weird. You don't really see it with other brands, and it's just like you don't see it like. I mean, well, actually, you do see it happening with mods, but I don't understand why they are so heavy-handed. But I am really, really pleased that you did take your approach, Andy, because I think
absolutely
many people would be put off by it and be like, "Oh, it's Capcom. I'm not messing with them. They own this. I don't want to get involved in anything."
And just fold to them.
This whole project could have just gone away.
Yeah, this isn't a secret, but Andrew messaged me and he said, "I don't want to open it. There is an email in our Gmail and it says Capcom legal, and I do not want to open it." Straight up, that's what he told me.
Wow.
And I was like, right, I'm at work at the moment. When I get home, we'll go through it. And I read it and I was like, he was like, "Oh man, it's really, really bad." I was like, "No, it's not. It's not."
And he was like, "Hold on."
They're obviously putting their foot down because they want to make it absolutely clear that they are Resident Evil, which they certainly do. No, I don't think that's up for question. But we have done nothing wrong here. We are making a not-for-profit fan film. We have made it expressly clear in our campaign that it's nothing to do with Capcom. It's nothing to do with Resident Evil. This is just pure fan passion, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. We're just putting out a YouTube video like anybody else. It's just at a bigger scale, and we have it funded by other people.
Yep. It hasn't been done before, but we're not
zero negative connotations on Capcom's behalf.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like we're not using character names. We're not using logos. Like we tried to be very adamant about that. So it's like, yeah, you're right, man. And that's, I remember that it was like in August, I think, of last year when that happened. Cause I remember I was in California for a couple of days, and I remember checking the chat, and you're just like, I was able to respond. You're like, Capcom reached out, but don't worry. I got the, I sent the response of a lifetime. I was like, all right, cool. So you had it down. Like you had it, and that's, I mean, yeah, you gotta put it all out there to say, look, we're being honest. This is true. We're not making anything from this. This is just like, or off of this rather. This is just, again, from the hearts. And, now that, everything is out, I guess this will be a good little jumping off point to start with. We should talk about how fans are feeling about it. How, the critiques that maybe you guys might have picked up on or read. I've seen a couple of stuff that's been sent in the chat and has been spoken about between us. But it's most of it's most of it is literally positive. But there is some critiques here and there. So I guess if we want to dive into them a little bit, or if there's some that you've spotted, Andy or Nougie, that you want to bring up and address, because I think this is a good time in the show to talk about said critiques that we got, and we're welcoming them with open arms. So we're not just like, screw you guys, no, we're chill about it. So is there any that come to mind that you wanted to kind of bring up here?
Yes. So there was, I'm just trying to bring it up, but my Twitter's just absolutely died on me. There was a really, really good comment from another content creator who really went into detail on a couple of the points. And for absolute clarity, the product we put out is Andrew Sorlow's intended vision for the Keeper's Diary of Biohazard Story. So we all, just like everybody about Resident Evil, have our own interpretation on what we believe Resident Evil to be. And likewise with the Keeper's Diary. Amongst all of us, I'm sure we have got our own vision of what we want that to be. So this is purely on the edit of Andrew's The Keeper's Diary project. And mainly there's, I suppose the first one that took a lot of people by surprise is Charlie doesn't voice the Keeper. What were your guys' thoughts about Charlie not voicing the Keeper?
I mean, I don't know. I think that it would have been perfectly fine having, Charlie give it a shot to do it, because I think he really worked really hard on this. And I know Joe White, worked really hard on his narration of the Keeper as well. But it would have been interesting to see, to hear it from Charlie, I think, in my opinion. But I still really like I still really like how everything was performed. And I think, Charlie could have, probably handled that as well, but I know logistics didn't work out as far as getting that from a tech side, recorded and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that went into that. So I understand being on the inside, knowing why that didn't happen. I know people on the outside are like, why didn't you just do that? And it's like, well, it's a lot to fly someone out and to do X, Y, and Z when we've already used everything that we had. It's like there's a lot that goes into that, but it would have been cool to see Charlie be Charlie in full, considering this is his return to the franchise after so long. It would have been cool to see him have that as well with the narration, but that's just my take on that.
Yeah, I think it was quite fitting, because Charlie's always been the live action actor of Chris Redfield. He's never obviously spoken his voice in Resident Evil, so how apt is it that he also doesn't use his voice in the Keeper's Diary?
I hadn't made that connection before. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, no one's heard Charlie. I just feel like, specifically with Joe Wright's a fantastic individual. Obviously, is acclaimed for playing Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 1 remake, and Richard in Resident Evil. Was it Richard in Resident Evil 1? I think he was. I just don't think it works compared to the original draft we had, which was another voice actor who, to be honest, sounded exactly like Charlie. Like we had Charlie's original voice for the poker scene.
I always thought it was Charlie. I mean, I only found out about a month ago that it was someone else.
Yeah, and I understand that there is a lot of stock in putting Joe White as the Keeper. You have that marketability of Joe White, of course. I just compared to what we had before, I don't think it worked as well as I wanted it to. And there's definitely, you can tell his mic quality is different. Now I've watched it 1,000 times. People probably won't notice, but now I've watched it 1,000 times. Like, you've got a pair of headphones in, you can definitely tell Joe White's microphone is not as crisp as what was recorded on set, or maybe some of the other Foley that was done at the time.
Yeah, it was a super last minute choice. You're talking about how we all sort of became numb to the film. We've watched so many versions of it, and then what was it like? I don't even know if it was a week. I felt like days before the film was released, the entirety of the VO was changed over to Joe White's, and so I think we were all just quite used to the original voice actor. I think Joe White did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But I think, like, as you say, like, because we're all so accustomed to hearing that voice, it was just like a bit different for us hearing the new one.
Yeah. And it was just, I don't know. It just doesn't fit as well as the original, in my opinion. There was a couple of instances where that's been the case. Another one was the mansion shot, that first mansion shot. But which, by the way, looks absolutely fantastic. Brent's done a great job. I just felt an earlier revision of that shot, it had this kind of, if you guys ever watched like Amityville Horror, where it's like the house is alive, like that shot, the early render of that shot
from the first cut,
just captured it so well. And I was like, man, that's if we go with this, listen, it's not the end of the world. It's your film, but man, there was something about that original shot, which when watching that original trailer that he shot out of his own money, he had that shot. And I was like, man, that's what pulled me in to the Keeper's Diary. Sorry, I just got a Sopranos reference there. You know, they take me back out, and they pull me.
Pull me back in. Love it.
Amazing.
Yeah, but yes, yeah, the mansion shot was another one. That there were just a few things like we were talking earlier about cameras, like camera shots. What was your favorite camera shot? And I do feel like we have left a lot on the table with camera shots. I don't think there's enough variety that was used in Andrew's vision of the Keeper's Diary. I think he liked being really close because he wanted to hide the sins of the set, let's call them.
He was saying the floor he just hated. Like he did not like the floor.
I built that floor. It's outrageous.
He didn't go white. And again, for absolute clarity, this is critical based on what I would think the Keeper's Diary is. Whether that's right or wrong, time will tell, of course. I just would have liked to have had more wide shots. Like Resident Evil is known for its fixed camera angles. It's known for wide shots.
And we got a lot. I feel like we did get a lot of wide shots, right, Nougie? I'm pretty sure we did. And I think it wasn't so much how the floor was. I think what he chose for that style, like what he bought, he was not happy with. He wasn't happy with the design that he chose, I guess, at Home Depot, which that Home Depot, we were keeping them in business for that weekend or that whole week. Because God, I mean, the trips back and forth and the receipts and but yeah, it was, I think that was the biggest thing is it seems like he just wasn't happy with the floor in that room that he chose. I don't know if it's the color that he didn't like or like I don't know. Maybe it was, I don't know. But yeah, I guess that's why a lot of that stuff, you're right. Like there was a lot to be left on the table with that because we did get wide shot. We did. I mean, I remember we literally were switching to those lenses to get those shots. Just wasn't used.
Shot, actually, it's in the trailer, the second trailer that Andrew put out, which shows Jill doing this fantastic. I've spoken to Nougie about this previously, like showing this spectacular, like weaving shot with the shot. Oh, it's beautiful, man! It's absolutely beautiful. But I think the issue was the door was shut, and when you shot the scene, the door was open. So to me, an easy fix for that is just put a sound effect when the camera's not facing it, and the door shuts. You know. It shuts on the way behind, like the wind's blown it shut or something like that. Right. And now you've kind of set up the next scene. So it was small details like that. I think there was issues with the firearm itself, like something to do with the hammer being back. So a lot of shots got disqualified because of that. Because where Gracie had tampered with the shotgun before she'd gone to the next blocked the scene out. You've effectively like somebody who's really paying attention, I guess, would have noticed that the hammer was down.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, that's the thing
like,
too. It's like when stuff like that happens, or for continuity, it's like a lot of those shots aren't, and a lot of those shots were tasty as hell, especially because again, like that hallway, just everything was hitting on all cylinders as far as like what we're able to visually pull from the set. And yeah, it obviously it's it's up to Andrew, I guess, the final edit, obviously, but it's like, there is stuff that wasn't used that would have made fans mark out even harder for some of that stuff.
Yeah. And just having, again, like that it's Resident Evil is fixed camera angles. Like that era of Resident Evil is so iconic for fixed camera angles. So, dude, get the wide shots in there. Let's see some There's a really good wide shot at the end where like it's kind of in the corner and it's kind of facing upwards. That's a great looking shot. There's just not enough of that. Everything is very, very close and isolated, which kind of fits the theme of Resident Evil, where it's all kind of isolated.
Sure.
It's all in the keeper's mind. I totally get that. And maybe that could be a valid point of why Andrew shot it like that. That was another one, just more dynamic shot selection.
That, and also the shot where when Jill goes to leave the keeper's room for the end, there was that take where as she shuts the door, the lightning bolt from outside comes through the door of the steam. As the door shuts, and we're all screaming on the set. We're like, this is the ending shot. And then we saw the edit. Don't know.
I don't know. I know Callie actually, if anyone wants to know,
It's a great photo of it.
yeah, Callie actually captured that moment, that exact moment that happened, and that was one of the first images that were put out about the film.
Yes.
And so like thankfully Callie does have she shot all the behind the scenes photos that you've been seeing online, and man, I mean that was I remember we were like talk about like being behind the monitor, like yo, like that was one of those moments I do remember. Because that was we thought it was going to make it in, but it didn't.
I would have liked to have finished on a wide shot. Like I would like those two shots to be inverted at the end, where it's kind of she walks towards the door to leave. That should have been a close, and then she kind of looks back. Then it goes to the wide. Then she walks out, shuts the door, and on the door shut, that's where the film ends.
Yeah.
Again, just kind of leaving on that Resident Evil-esque camera angle is super important to me. But outside of that, Luke, was there any other criticisms that you picked up on? Like, as I said, for me, it was the VO can kind of be a little bit disorientating, and the shot selection.
I mean, do you know what? All of the criticisms that I've spotted were all things that we're aware of. I mean, I mentioned about the Keeper's the Keeper's room lighting. I noticed a comment about that, which I always knew it was like one of those things. As we were doing it, I was like, if I just had a bit more time. But then also, if we'd spent more time on that, then the entire project would be behind, and then we would have lost other stuff or whatever. So it's always like a compromise. You've always got to balance things out. That's a really important aspect of filmmaking, is that you have to realize not everything can be perfect. You can try and get everything to be the absolute best that you can, and then you have to step away and move on to the next thing. But yeah, any other criticisms, any other little things? And there really hasn't been that much I've been able to find, but all of the things that people have mentioned have been things that have been in the back of my mind. Whether I've agreed with them or not, I have always considered them. So nothing has really come out as a surprise to me, if I'm honest.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. Cause I think now that we're, it's out there, and again, most of it's like, 98% positive really, as far as like the feedback. So I think like, again, we're always going to see those little things like, but cause we were in it. So it's just, it's thankfully that it hasn't been too brutal, because again, you're going into this, like we said, like RE fans, very passionate. That's why they want things to be, perfect in that way. So, there is a lot of pressure within that, but yeah, even like there's still some things that like maybe we see that other people didn't even pick up on, like you mentioned earlier, that we're just like, all right, we know about it, but maybe the other people won't know about it. So, it's only something in our head.
I think what has really, really helped is the production office chat that we've had. That's been going on for almost a year. So we've basically just got this private message group that's all of us guys, and then like all the other sort of top people in production. All of us throughout the whole, pre-production, production, post-production. Everyone has been super active in that chat. It hasn't been like what you get in like a lot of WhatsApp groups or whatever, where people are passive or disappear, or life gets in the way and they disappear. It's just like any day you post something in there, asking for ideas, asking for feedback, showing little edits of things, showing color grading examples, anything that goes in there, people instantly respond. And I just think that instant feedback and that collaborative aspect is really what has helped us make something where we've spotted all of those things.
Absolutely.
Sorry guys, they've just announced the new Resident Evil on the Capcom.
Are you serious?
What?
They said there wasn't going to be any Resident Evil announcements.
The director, Koshi, they haven't announced too much detail. They've just said a new Resident Evil is in development.
Oh, that's all they said.
What the fuck?
Wow.
No,
so Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is coming out September 18th, confirmed using RE Engine. The gameplay of the original remains intact, but there are various quality of life improvements such as auto-saving, revamped controls, improved UI. So this is mostly focused on Dead Rising and then the RE7 Mac release. But I guess at the end they're just like, and we're making a new Resident Evil, which again, yeah, I guess that's good for people to
That's hilarious.
have something
I'm
confirmed.
totally gonna
Yeah, no, definitely do your thing.
That's mad.
Yeah, yeah, I did know
How
that was
fucking
going
early?
on today, and I was like, I wanted to live stream it, but I'm like, you know what? I want to do this. So
Not enough. There's not enough substance on it either.
yeah,
To be honest.
it's 25 minutes, and I guess they used the last few minutes to be like, and we're working on Resident Evil, which we had an idea they were working on something, but I think fans are going to be more upset that they didn't show anything, because the one thing they said at the bottom of their press release for the event was like, there's not going to be Monster Hunter or any updates of other Capcom games. Like, that's what they said. Like, but they kind of did give an update just to be like, oh, we're working on it, but just no title, not saying what it is, so fans will probably want more from that. But there you go. It broke live while we're recording this anyway in the VOD. But yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's funny. You're gonna have to post a clip of that afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just see Andy's reaction, and like Nougie's talking. I'm just like, uh-oh, does something happen with Keeper's Diary or something?
I was like, he's got a great story I've forgotten about.
Yeah. No, but from what Nougie was saying too, no, you're right. Like that chat, yeah, like really has been active, and like I think, Andrew has also been really cool with like, sharing that progress from literally like just before the first cut onward, so we were able to kind of see those changes or certain things. And yeah, it kept everyone, I think, on the same page, at least what was going on, even if like certain things might have taken a little bit longer or certain things were, more of a process to get through. But like, yeah, it really kept us all in the loop. It wasn't just like someone would be AFK for like 3 months and not reply to anything, or like, the most you would have to wait is like a day for someone else to reply, not even sometimes. So like everyone was pretty snappy on there, which was good.
Because on the flip side,
yeah,
like there's been loads of films I've worked on. The second that you leave the film set, you go your separate ways. No pun intended.
Yeah.
You go your separate ways, and you don't hear from that director or that production team again for like months. And then they get in touch. They're like, "Oh, guys, we've just finished the cut. Do you want to see it?" You'd be like, "Oh, yeah, great, I want to see it." And they send you a link, and all of these things have changed from the original concept. And it's all a surprise to you. You don't know about any of this stuff, and you're like, what's happened here? What are the reasons behind this? You don't know any of the information. There's been like no communication, but at least decisions, whether we agree with them, whether we don't agree with them, at least we've had a really clear channel of communication. At least been no surprises. We've all known what has been coming up. So yeah, I think that's really helped.
It's only been out for a day, but it's crazy the success that we've seen already, and I'm sure we'll keep getting coverage on it. I know there's been a bunch of articles posting about it today, so it's really starting to even pick up more pace, which is incredible. I think there's going to be more stuff like this that we're able to do. I would hope, especially after the success of this stuff. I know there's been plans. I don't want to give too much away, but let's just hope that people see this and they know that we mean business when it comes to actually, taking the fans' money and making something that is special for the fans. So I think, I just think we did a very good job at the end of this thing, at the end of this road of Keeper's Diary. I really don't think that I would change anything as far as like the things we mentioned, those little things, but as far as the experiences and the lifelong memories that I'll have from this, probably wouldn't change a thing at this point. Obviously just apply the knowledge and skill for next time. Those things can be a change and stuff. But, other than that, man, yeah, I'm very proud that we're all past the finish line now. We can just enjoy just seeing the fans react. And kind of like what Andy was saying earlier, like people saying how it, almost brought them to tears, or it made them want to, dust off their PS1 and play the old games again. Things like that are what we were trying to do. We're trying to really, hit that nostalgia wave, but also just that the cherished warm memories that Resident Evil has for all of us individually. And, hopefully that comes across in the finished product. If anyone watching or listening hasn't seen it yet, you should have already go see it. It's at the Residents of Evil channel. And, you definitely won't be disappointed. At least I hope not. So yeah, I think I can all say as a group that, yeah, like we're just very, very content with the response, I think.
Wasn't prepared for this. Like yesterday, was kind of, you can't please everyone, particularly Resident Evil fans. So like yesterday, I was really expecting to, I was there watching the comments. I was like, right, what have people got to say about this?
Right.
And so when I was just reading it and just seeing all the positivity, I was literally was blown away. Like, was not expecting that much. So, yeah, that has been a really nice way to finish this project.
Ultimately, I want this to be a movement. I want this to be a real push for Constantine Films to finally see the light and aim towards a real, authentic Resident Evil adaptation. I think we've proved the point that, yes, our adaptation is not perfect. We are a very, very infantile crew in the grand scheme of things, very inexperienced crew, but we had that passion and that has resonated with people. So hopefully this starts a bigger movement. Maybe somebody at Constantine's like, actually, we spent all of our time playing outside of the sandbox, and maybe it's time for us to play back in the sandbox and really, really play with what is it about Resident Evil that people love? And ultimately, it's making people feel Resident Evil, not just see it, but feel Resident Evil. But yes, my name's Andy. My platform is Biohazard Declassified. I do a lot of streams, memes, daily Resident Evil content, and now I'm a producer too. So yeah, we're living the dream right now. We're living the dream. It's been a pleasure.
Perfect.
Very nice. Yeah, kind of following up on what Andy said, you know, even if we don't make anything else together again, you know, I hope that we do, but, you know, for whatever reasons, life gets in the way, the opportunity doesn't come. If we don't do anything else, I just really hope that we have kind of paved the way for more people to take the Resident Evil film series seriously. And I really hope that this just kind of gets the message across to big studios to not just make things for the sake of it and to make things because there's a fan base out there. If you're going to make content for a dedicated fan base, you need to know the series properly and you need to bring people on board that understand what you're trying to do. You know, as Andy said, we aren't the most experienced people here. We didn't have the most expensive cameras. We didn't have the biggest budget. We didn't have the most experienced crew. Loads of people that we had on the film set, it's their first time on a film set, you know. So there's millions of people that could do better than what we did. But the thing that we did better than anyone else is we had a vision and we had passion and we carried it through from the start to the finish. And that is why this has been so successful. So I just really hope that other people can follow in those footsteps. But also, I hope that we can use this to do bigger and better things together. I'm Luke, Nougie, as you guys know me, from Resident Evil Challenger. Just Resident Evil Challenger on YouTube. I also post a load of film stuff on Twitter, just Nougie. So, yeah, give us a follow.
Perfect. Yeah, no, very well said, guys. And yeah, this is a great show. I just love just kind of reminiscing about the experience and shooting the shit with you guys. It's always fun. And just, yeah, just to kind of share our, you know, experiences and like, you know, yeah, this is just amazing. And yeah, it looks like just a sidebar real quick before I let you guys go. Yeah, the director said, he said specifically for the new Resident Evil, it says, it was really difficult to figure out what to do after 7, but I found it. And to be honest, it feels substantial. I can't share any details yet, but I hope you're excited for the day I can. So I guess, you know, he's pretty much saying, yeah, well,
remake.
I have ideas, and it's so I guess, like, you know, it's he was he worked on Resident Evil 5 as a designer. He worked on Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3D creative director, Revelations, and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. He was a director for 7 and Revelations specifically. So it's going to be Nakanishi. I believe I'm saying that right. I don't want to mispronounce it, but that's who's going to be Koshi Nakanishi. He's going to be the director. So I just want to say that. So that's in this episode too, so people know. But yeah, so who knows? We all might be covering some new Resident Evil stuff or playing some new Resident Evil soon. That's definitely always great. Fingers crossed. We're always here for some Resident Evil, to see it back in a, you know, big way. And for this to come out, for our film to come out around this time, I just feel like it all connects. It all makes sense now that, like, Resident Evil is at the peak. It's the biggest it's ever been. And here we are with Keeper's Diary. So it's just a great way to launch this new era, or whatever you want to call it, of Resident Evil. So we'll keep it going. But thank you guys for being on the show. Always a pleasure. We're going to have to do it again soon. And that's about it. So thank you guys for watching this podcast, and we will see all you guys in the next one. Peace out.